What is going on, everybody? I have a bit of a different video for you today, and I feel like I'm making this because my game theory is in a better place now than it was 3 months ago when I started this video. I feel like I'm a little more competitive on ladder. I feel like I understand the meta right now well enough that I can make this video. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this, I just want you guys to know that Jalexander, who's an awesome content creator, he does a lot of articles, he streams, did an article on this very topic a few months ago. I did not read that article. I saw it. I read some of the comments, but I want you guys to know any commonalities between this video here and Jalexander's article are purely coincidental. I will link his Twitch, Twitter, and the article below if I can find it. So if you want to check all that stuff out, I highly recommend it. We just passed 20 subscribers, guys, and I'm really thankful. 3 months of this has been a lot of fun. I made a lot of new connections that I didn't have 3 months ago. I'm having a lot of fun doing this, so thank you guys. If you want to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated. Your support does mean the world to me. Now, just so we're fully clear, this has been scripted. I did write something out. I did this once already, and it sounded not great. I was not a fan of it, so we're doing this again. There may be times where I have to read scripted, but we're going to try and bring in some office flair and do some improv.
Write it and we'll do it live!
So a tech card is a card that doesn't necessarily go into your deck because it doesn't fit your game plan. The goal of a tech card is to improve specific matchups. The best example, and the most well-known example, is Acidic Swamp Ooze. It's a card that's been around since Hearthstone's beginning. It's the basic and classic set, and its effect is pretty simple. It just destroys your opponent's weapon, which makes it pretty inconsequential in other matchups. But I want to ask the questions in this video. When should we use tech cards, and if we should always be using tech cards? So let's talk about the first example. Again, Acidic Swamp Ooze. It's been around since the classic and basic set. And the reason Acidic Swamp Ooze is run is to target weapon-reliant decks. Namely, right now, there's four classes that run weapons, those being Warrior, Demon Hunter, Rogue, and Hunter. Ooze has not always found its way into decks. It usually is fit into a deck that has slots for it, so Highlander decks are a really good example of this. And in control decks that can target weapon-based decks so they don't put off as much damage or as much value from that weapon. If we want to move a little further into the direction of weapon hate, we have Cobalt Sticky Fingers. This card, instead of destroying the weapon, steals it. So your opponent can no longer use it, you use it instead. The benefit of stealing a weapon is that your opponent cannot re-equip it with something like Horde Pillager. It's a 5-mana 5/5. It's a pretty bad tempo play, but it's been teched in competitive play, so those people in those competitive tournaments, instead of banning Warrior, target Warrior and other weapons pretty hard. Conversely, if you want to get some value and draw some cards, you can play Harrison Jones, which draws cards equal to the destroyed weapon's durability, I believe.
You are correct, sir!
A card that has seen a little more play and is a little more flexible is Magtheridon. It's an interesting card to bring up because it was a tech card for one specific deck rather than a percentage of decks. Soul Demon Hunter ran this card to target Druid before the nerfs. However, it's still pretty strong against Paladin, which is Demon Hunter's worst matchup, so it can still fit in to target other parts of the meta. And another card that could be a tech card that I've never seen play before is Wormrest Purifier. I think I've gotten this once off of an Evolve Lackey. I've never thought about putting this card in my deck. Basically what it does, if you don't know, and I don't blame you for not knowing, is it turns all neutral cards, bombs, in your deck into cards from your class. It can be text against Bomb Warrior. I highly, highly, highly recommend against it. There are some other cards that have been used as tech cards in the patch, or theoretically could be used, those being silence cards like Ironbeak Owl and secret hate like SI7 Infiltrator. The reason I bring up these cards is because if there's something like a minion that needs to be silenced that's ever gets incredibly popular in the meta, you want to run silence. Now, you should know that a lot of classes have their own silence cards. Demon Hunter has Consume Magic and Mage Hunter. Druid has Keeper of the Grove. Mage has Devolving Missiles. Priest has Silence, Mass Dispel, and Plague of Death. And Shaman has Earthshock. Secrets, which have never been too offensive within a meta, you can still target them with SI7 Infiltrator, but if you're Hunter, you want to run Flare. And the reason I'm saying this, well, it's relatively inconsequential for the rest of the video, is that know what tools your class has before just putting in subpar cards like Ironbeak Owl or SI7 Infiltrator. But the question about tech cards is, when are we using them, especially right now in the Scholomance Academy meta? Let's go back to our first card, Acidic Swamp Ooze. What matchups are you hoping to target with this card? In the current meta, the classes that rely most on weapons are Warrior and Rogue, specifically the aggressive weapon variant of Rogue. We know that Bomb Warrior relies on Wrench Caliber. It lives and dies by that card. Its game plan is to make a big weapon, hit you in the face a bunch of times, and then have you draw bombs that deal 5 damage. If you destroy that weapon, they can re-equip with Horde Pillager, but if they can't, or they have to wait to draw Horde Pillager or another weapon, it's going to take them a while to do that, and that is kind of against their game plan. The longer you can hold out against the weapon, and the more damage you can deal before they can re-equip that weapon, it's really good for you. Weapon Rogue also requires their weapon, but they require it for more aggression, more tempo, and value because of cards like Steel Dancer. However, instead of spacing out their buffs, which Bomb Warrior has the ability to do, they will instead go all in with their buffs on one weapon. Hopefully that weapon for them is Self-Sharpening Sword. If you can destroy that weapon, they have to pivot to more minion-based damage, which that deck is pretty bad at. You'll notice that I did not mention Soul Demon Hunter, and the reason for that is because they don't use their weapon for value or tempo like the other two decks do. They use it for extra damage and healing. And unlike Bomb Warrior, Soul Demon Hunter runs 4 weapons, Bomb Warrior runs 2, so even if you destroy that weapon, they'll just play another copy of that weapon. So just be aware of that. Their game plan is to get a lot of attack with cards like Soul Shard Lapidary, Glavebound Adept, Twin Slice, and hit you in the face. And if you take your weapon offline, they can still create big attack turns. I also did not mention Face Hunter, because if you're focused on taking out Eaglehorn Bow, they're just going to burn you out with their own minions, their own spells, and their hero power. Their weapon is relatively inconsequential to their own game plan, it's just extra damage. Speaking quickly on Cobalt Sticky Fingers, I would not recommend running this card unless you are in a competitive environment where you can target Warrior or ban Warrior. As for Magtheridon, the nerf to Druid made this card pretty unnecessary. It's still good against Paladin according to the Vicious Syndicate report, but without so many Druids on ladder, you can run cards that are good for your game plan, things that buff your hero's attack or generate value. So playing Magtheridon against classes like Mage, Rogue, or Priest, or even the Mirror are less beneficial to your game plan of controlling the board, giving your hero a lot of attack, and hitting the opponent in the face. Right now, tech cards are namely used for weapon hates, which is a very small but present part of the meta. And I think for a lot of players, it feels like you need to run weapon hates to target those classes. But adding these niche cards to your deck can actually hurt it rather than help it, especially in those matchups that don't run weapons. That said, please, 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 please do not run Worm Rest Purifier in your deck. Boo! To close, I will ask this question. Is it worth it to run standard tech cards if you're not in a competitive environment? And when I ask this, I am speaking about more flexible cards like Acidic Swamp Ooze and Magtheridon. And to answer this question, I'm going to ask another question, and if you can answer yes to this question, then include those cards. But the answer I have for the question is, will including this card in your deck improve your bad matchups enough and minimize the damage to your own good matchups? So if you think the answer is yes, then include the tech card. But remember, you're only targeting a small part of the meta, and removing one card to include a fringe card could actually hurt your performance on ladder. Tech cards, they're a crutch, right? Some cards greatly improve your matchup against specific decks, like Magtheridon. Other cards seem attractive because they feel good to play against your bad matchups, but don't really have any benefit outside of those matchups, like Acidic Swamp Ooze. Some are only meant for competitive play, like Kobold Sticky Fingers, and some should never have been printed, like Wormrest Purifier. So my suggestion to you is to learn your deck. What is its role in both your good and bad matchups? Knowing your role and knowing your deck's game plan is what's going to greatly improve your win rate without the help of niche cards. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I've really enjoyed making this video. I plan to make some more in the future once I think of some topics. But if you have any recommendations or want to know more or just want to add to anything I've said in this video, leave a comment, like and subscribe for more gameplay and content like this in the future. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you all later.